Well, again, I guess we could skip the action items, which I think would be the approval of the minutes and the first new business, the FIP replacement. And maybe in the meantime, Board Member Roth can get back on and we'll run through the other items that we have and go from there if that would work for you, Chair.
That sounds fine. So we'd start with proposed utilities budget. Is that what you wanted to?
Yeah, if you want to call the meeting to order and then we can
yes.
go straight to there.
Yes, let's call the meeting of the June 8th, 2021 meeting of the Englewood Water and Sewer Board to order. Yes.
Okay, we want to do a roll call.
A roll call. Well, do we want to do a roll call yet?
I think we can just, yeah, I think we can record who's here now, and then if Board Member Roth joins, we'll just acknowledge that he's also joined.
Okay. John Moore.
Present.
Chair Habenicht, present. Caitlin is not here. Dravas.
Here.
Mayor Olson.
Sorry about that.
Closet door all the way, and we're filling this up with Dad's clothes.
I have a in-law emergency thing going on, so I was just getting the information. So
Okay. Linda Olson, present. Joe Anderson.
Not here tonight.
Not here.
And Councilmember Wank is also not here.
and I texted her, she hasn't responded, so I don't know what's up.
So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We do not yet have a quorum. So I would assume that we should, you want to move ahead to the proposed budget.
Well, I think if we move, we could skip the approval of minutes, and if we don't get a quorum, we can defer that to the next month. And then I think we could go to public comment.
Yes, do we have any members of the public with us?
No, there are no members of the public for comment.
Okay.
Okay, so then we can go on to new business if Chair pleases.
Yes, please.
Okay, we will skip the first item, which is item 5A, and move to item 5B. And I'd like to welcome our guest, Public Works Director Maria DeAndre, who is the Managing Director over the Stormwater Fund, and she is here to provide the board with an overview of the Stormwater Enterprise budget for 2022. So Maria, it's all yours. Welcome to the Water and Sewer Board. Welcome back.
Thank you. Yeah, good to see everybody again. For those of you, if you don't remember, I was the interim utilities director pre-COVID or pre Peter taking over. So it's good to see all of you again. So as Peter mentioned, we're going to talk tonight about stormwater. And the reason we're bringing this forward to the Water and Sewer Board is that it's actually in the municipal code that Water and Sewer Board at least have the opportunity to weigh in on the proposed capital improvement program for stormwater. So we are bringing it forward to you tonight to take a look at that. Our intent though, and I think the reasoning for that was that utilities encompassed sanitary sewer, water, and stormwater in the past. And of course, as Peter just mentioned, stormwater has been broken off and is now under public works. So we're going to be working on that over the next year before the next process, but more than happy to bring this back to you in the future if you're still interested. But that's the reasoning for our discussion tonight. So I just have a few slides to go through, and we'll be talking a little bit more just about the specific projects. This photo that you see here, we've really, this was when we were cleaning out the Oxford stormwater pipe that runs from roughly the intersection of Santa Fe and Oxford all the way out to the South Platte River. There were places where we found 6 feet of debris, and you can see some of the accumulated materials in there. And as you know, we had a very large rainstorm event in July of 2018. This is a photo from Rotolo Park, if you're familiar with that area. And it just dumped over 1.25 inches of rain within less than 45 minutes. And so what it helped to do was help the city to really focus on stormwater as an overall program and what we needed to do to maintain our system and enhance it so that we could provide better flood control and flood relief from private property. So that's really the impetus of this capital improvement program, is trying to achieve those outcomes. So, and as the bullet or slide says here, is again, maintaining the system in a more proactive manner and in constructing improvements that provide additional capacity. So larger pipes, more inlets that draw water away from the street and from private property into the system that's already there. So the proposed capital projects for stormwater drainage fund from 2022 through 2026, we anticipate that we are going to, as you can see there, we're going to have revenue coming in at just over 11.5 million, using up about 9.4 million. And we have this is more the operating budget, if you will. And then the capital project requests are quite significant. So just in 2022, we're anticipating a capital request of 24.6 million. And I'll show the breakdown for that on the next slide. So as you can see here, if that leftmost column, we are constructing a number of significant projects. These were identified in a stormwater master plan that was completed in the early part of 2019. We also did a rate study at approximately that same time, and 29 projects were prioritized. So you can see here that we're kind of taking on 4 of those. So the first one on this list is project S3A. We've broken that down. Project S3 is broken down into an A, so phase 1, and then at the bottom here you see S3B, which is essentially phase 2. And this is just east and west of Broadway at approximately the intersections of Tufts and Clarkson, just on either side of Broadway. So we are moving forward right now. We've gotten our bids back for S3A, but we anticipate that the work will start this year, but tail over into 2022. Similarly, later this fall, S3B will begin, but we'll still be doing some construction work in the spring of 2022. Then the next project is our hospital project that we call it. This is along Old Hampton Avenue, right in front of Swedish. So we want to replace the line and enlarge it all the way from Clarkson to Lincoln, and then take a new outlet down to Little Dry Creek along Lincoln Avenue. So you can see that there for 2.8 million. Then the third project, which is the significant one on this list, is what we're calling the South Englewood Stormwater Improvements. And this really covers the, as it says, the South Englewood portion, where we received most of the flooding and most of that rainfall back in 2018. And what we're planning to do with this project is to construct about a 6-acre stormwater pond in the industrial area in and around Radcliffe and approximately Navajo. So we're still identifying properties down there, but we would construct a detention pond that would then hold back the water until such time as it could be released over the next couple of days into the existing system. Then the fourth project is to construct the where is it listed here? Yeah, so the small area drainage improvements. So that's the third line. This is just some localized flooding where we're trying to do, again, some kind of improvements at spot locations where we currently have some flooding going on, but the scale of the projects isn't as large. We're also going to be installing some rain gauges, putting money aside to rehabilitate our existing storm sewer, So for example, lining that or replacing certain segments to make sure that it's in good condition. And then performing some asset management data collections so that we know exactly where things are, what their condition is, and then are creating a proactive plan to address those. So that's the significant projects for 2022. And then you can see as we go out into the future years, we do have other projects planned, but it's really this first year that we're trying to get after these to address some of that flooding, again, provide relief. We are in the midst right now of going through the process of issuing $10 million in bonds for the stormwater fund. So we don't have enough money in the bank right now to take on these projects, but we are issuing those bonds, and we plan to sell those probably early part of July, where we would receive that revenue. So again, we're in that process. We've also applied for several significant grants, especially for the South Englewood Stormwater Improvements Project, which is the 19 million seen there. And so we're hoping to hear back this summer if we're successful with that through FEMA. And with that, I believe that's the last slide. So I'm happy to answer any questions or go into more detail as you would like.
Any questions from anyone? Suggestions?
I have a quick one. When you started speaking on this, you said the Water and Sewer Board has the opportunity to weigh in, but the stormwater issue has been broken off. What's the group that it now is covered by?
That's the concern, is that there's really not one. So that's the process we want to evaluate over this next year before the next budget cycle is there a board, another board and commission that might be more appropriate to oversee the stormwater fund?
Ah, okay. All right.
Yep. So we're still not sure.
Okay.
Okay. No other discussion on this matter? Do we, okay, are we up to quota here for?
I think we've hit a quorum, and so Maria, thank you for presenting the stormwater. We appreciate it. We appreciate you joining us tonight.
Thank you.
Chair, if you don't mind, I would recommend that we move back to the action item that was the first 5A, which is the filter interface panel replacement, and we can move forward with a presentation on that and get a motion from the board.
Now I'm all, okay, here we go. Project criticality. I'm lost. I'm totally lost now. My paperwork is just everywhere. Let's see, stormwater drainage. Okay, that's aside. Project criticality. This is.
So on the agenda, it would be under new business 5A would be the next item.
Page 7.
Yeah. That just went, oh, come on. Did I get into there? No. I apologize. I'm just not with this.
No problem at all. If you'd like us, we could proceed with that item if it would.
We would go ahead with that item. Yes, please.
Okay, so let's move to 5A, which is a filter interface panel FIP replacement. And with us today is Steve Simon, our Deputy Director of Engineering, as well as Mike Assante, who is one of our engineers, who is the project manager on this project. So I will turn it over to them to present, and then we'll look for a motion from the board.
Yes.
Great, thank you. And thanks, Chair and members of the board. This next agenda item is board consideration to recommend council approve a design and installation contract to replace an aging control system for the filter process at the Allen Water Treatment Plant. I will hand it over to Mike Assante, who, as Peter mentioned, will be managing the work, and he'll discuss the background, need, and procurement process for the work.
Thanks for the introduction, Steve, and thank you, board members, for the opportunity to discuss this exciting and critical project. And the best way to touch on the criticality of the project is to start by the location where this project will take place, and that's the Allen Water Treatment Plant. And the interesting thing about this plant is it's the sole source of supply for every resident in the city. So it's very important to keep this plant running 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. And perhaps the most important individual treatment process within the plant is the water filtration process. And through that process, we remove things like particles and organic material, which can cause a lot of downstream water quality problems if not managed appropriately. And as a fun fact, the first water treatment systems in the US in the early 1900s had one treatment process and only one, and that was the water filter. So it kind of describes and highlights the criticality of this unit. Now, we've come a long way in the past 100 years from that period, and one of the big changes in water treatment is the ability to automate specific processes. And that'll be the subject matter for this project, is discussing the filter interface panel, which controls this filtration process in an automatic fashion. So we'll dive down a little deeper into how we use automated processes in our treatment plant next. So we've got a team of water treatment plant operators that works at the plant round the clock, and they use computer screens with software on it called the human machine interface. And that's what allows them to tell and monitor treatment plant processes and control treatment plant processes. And as we dive down a little further, PLCs, or programmable logic controllers, are the brains that allows us to communicate with each specific piece of water treatment plant equipment. So doing things like turning this valve off and this one on. And for reference, we've got 6 of those little PLC stations throughout the plant, and each of them is responsible for controlling different treatment processes. And next we'll dive into the specific project need to update our filter process control panel. So off to the right is a picture looking inside of this filter interface panel and into the brains. Highlighted in green there are those PLCs that we just touched on. And the primary driver for this project is that this equipment was installed in 2000. And just like any at-home computer equipment, these types of things go obsolete pretty quickly. So these, our PLCs are beyond their useful life and obsolete. And the primary challenge is when something fails in this process, it's really tough to find a replacement component for it because the manufacturers no longer support them. It's been difficult enough that we've even had to order parts from eBay when something has failed to keep the treatment plant process running. And the other interesting component about this filter control process is that it still involves a fair amount of manual interaction from our operators. And manual interactions can lead to small inconsistencies over time, something that automated processes help smoothen out to make sure that we're consistent around the clock. So once we defined this project need, we came up with a project scope and plan to deliver this work and make the upgrade. And it's composed of 2 large steps. The first one is updating those control room screens that we talked about, or the HMIs that the operators look at to monitor the plant. And the second step is to replace the brains, the software and hardware components inside of that filter interface panel that we were just looking into. And through this process, we'd identified 2 options. One, we could either build a new filter panel altogether, or we could reuse the existing filter panel and just put in new parts and components. And we decided that was the best option because it would, 1, help us save money, and 2, prevent unnecessary construction delays by building a completely new panel. So once we've done that, we'll go into the procurement process, and where we identified a good control system integrator company to help partner with us to get this work done. And we released an RFP out in March 2021 to solicit this job. And we developed a selection panel of engineering and O&M staff internally to review those bids that we received. We received 2 of them, both from highly qualified firms, Huffman Engineering and Browns Hill. And we determined as a team that Huffman Engineering not only offered the best value, they were substantially lower priced than Browns Hill, but they also had a very good backlog of previous project experience with local utilities around the area. We evaluated that by calling references. And also importantly, they were certified by a national body called the Control System Integrators Association. And they certify these types of companies who can demonstrate solid past project experience and solid financial stability as a company. So that gave us very high confidence in them. And the last step, once we identified a partner, was to develop a schedule for implementation of this work. And the first step would be soliciting feedback from the Water and Sewer Board based on this project work, and then subsequently bringing it to council later in the month. And hypothetically, after those steps, we would start the project in July 2021. Quarters 3 and 4 would be spent procuring these new pieces of hardware and software and programming them. And then we've chosen to do the actual construction work in quarters 4 of 2021 and early in 2022. And that's because during that winter period, we've got lower water demands, which means we have more redundancy in our treatment plant process, which makes it a much safer time to perform construction work. So that summarizes the project. And at this point, I'd love to solicit any feedback or questions from the board.
Do we have any questions? Seeing that we do not, I guess we move on as a motion to recommend that the City Council approve by motion a professional services agreement with Huffman Engineering Incorporated in the amount not to exceed $530,290 for the filter interface panel replacement project. Yes?
I move.
Oh, yes. Do we have a motion? Do we have a, are there any negatives on?
We would look for a second. Chair, we would
I'll
look for a
second it
second.
for the, so we can keep moving.
I'm sorry?
I second it just so we can keep, so you can have the conversation.
It's been moved and seconded. Thank you. There's no discussion. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. All those who oppose? We have 5 ayes then? Yes, we have five.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes,
And no nays, which we have an agreement on this motion approval to move forward.
right. My internet is going in and out, so I hope I can stay on, but I just wanted, I may have misheard something, but I wanted to make sure for the record that it's known that Don Roth entered the room and we had a quorum finally, so.
Very good, thank you.
You may have said that, but I just want to make sure it was said.
Can I recommend that we approve the minutes then, so we get both action items taken care
Oh,
of?
yes, the minutes of the May 11th, 2021 meeting. Let's see.
Item 3.
The approval of minutes.
So we would look for a motion from the board and then a second.
Okay, we need a motion from the board that of the approval of the May 11th, 2021 Englewood Water and Sewer Board minutes. All those, do we have a?
Yeah, I'll move.
Do we have a move? A second?
Second.
Motion's been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? It has been moved and seconded. What else do I have to do?
That's it. Motion carried. So we
Oh, motion
can.
carried. That was it.
So So if it's okay with the chair, we could move to item 5C, which is
Very
back
definitely.
into new business. And this is hard because we're jumping around a lot tonight. So I appreciate your flexibility, chair and board, on getting through our circuitous route to get through the agenda today. Okay, so as we move through May and June and July, we are in the process of developing the utilities water enterprise fund and sewer enterprise fund budgets. And tonight I'd like to cover some of the major items tonight, which are increases that we have proposed and for 2022, and then staffing additions that we have proposed for 2022. So I'm going to share my screen. And hopefully I get the right one. Okay, can everybody see that?
Mhm.
Okay, perfect. So if you, oh, let me make sure I'm on the right screen. Here we go. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at the, if you recall last year when we were developing the 10-year financial plans for the water enterprise fund and the sewer enterprise fund, we had the models that we went through. And so those are the models that we're continuing to work from. So we're going to look at what we had last year and then what we were proposing for this year, essentially moving the model out another year. And then talk about additional staffing needs that were originally proposed at the time of the master plan. So this is what we talked about last year. This is the slide that we put together, which was the summary of the financial plan for FY 2020 through FY 2030. And you can see there was this set of rate increases. There was a schedule of rate increases over the course of the 10 years that were steady and predictable, that were the purpose of which were to help us not get so far behind like we may have been in the past, and really just make it a more steady approach to increasing rates as opposed to a more spiked approach where we go several years without rate increases, get behind from a funding perspective, and then have to have more significant rate increases. So this is the model that we based everything on last year and what we presented. And this is what that looked like in terms of what we were trying to accomplish through that model. And you can see the couple charts that I'd like to highlight are in the upper left. You can see that's the operating fund, current plan, and target. And so we're drawing down the fund balance to address some of the projects that have built up over time. And then you can see that black line. And what that black line does is that establishes a 3-month reserve, so that we have a set reserve that's actually established within our financial model. And we build into that over the next few years to get to a point where we have a set reserve. And then the other one is in the middle, lower middle, which is the CIP funding. And you can see the green is cash funded, and the red is where we start issuing debt. So the plan would be to issue debt in 2022, which is the WIFIA process that we talked about last month. So as we look at the 2021 financial plan outlook, it's very similar. The rate increases we've kept the same at that 4.5% rate that we planned for through 2031. And we ended up, the other piece of this, which doesn't affect this year, is you can see the CIF fee, which is the fourth line down. And the plan at the time when we developed this last year was to have that as a 2-year step. So for now it's 15 in 2021, that's the new CIF that went into effect in April. In 2022, that would stay the same. And then by the time we got to January of 2023, we would step it by $1. And you can see there's a steady step process through the course of 2029 and into 2030. And then we have not talked beyond 2031 as it relates to how that CIF moves. And this is what happens. This is what our current plan is. And if you can see, if we go back to the operating fund, what we did is instead of drawing all the the fund balance down to the point where we go below what's a reserve target and then build back up to a reserve target. We just established a flat line reserve target right out of the gate. And so you can see that's that black line. So we don't have that drawdown of too far and then have to build it back up. The other thing is, if you look at the CIP funding, we're really trying to spread the debt load on this and work to accomplish we're trying to balance the extensive needs that were identified in the master plan with how to fund that with a blend of cash and debt. And so this is the current version of the model. We are continuing to work on ways to improve revenue from other sources outside of just rates and fees, as well as blend and utilize different funding mechanisms like the ARPA funds is one that's out there. There's also earmark opportunities that we have put projects in for, and to see if we can access some more of the federal funding that's becoming more and more prevalent with the new administration and the focus on national infrastructure and specifically water infrastructure. So none of that is actually factored in here, but it's something that we're targeting because every amount that we can get in terms of federal funding can help reduce the red, which is that debt burden. And so that's what the water fund plan looks like for 2021. 2020 sewer financial plan, this is what we talked about last year. Very similar, 4.5% until we get to FY 2025. The reason why it drops down to 3 is that's when we retired the bonds from the expansion in the early 2000s. And from there, we move forward with a plan right now of 3%. So the plan for 2021 at the time of last year was 4.5% of an increase and 2022 was also a 4.5% increase. So this is what that looks like. Similar issues with we want to build towards an operating fund balance, but you can see this is the one that I've talked about where there's a significant amount of debt burden. And this is where the work with the connector district multiplier can help us mitigate the risk that the city takes on because by assuming that large of a debt burden. So in the 21 financial outlook, we're sticking to the plan that we developed last year, and then when we get to FY 2031, we put that in at 4% because when you get out of the 10-year and you get to the 10 to 20-year window on the sewer fund, there's a number of really significant projects at South Platte Renew that are substantial projects that we need to be building towards that will be required for construction in the 2035 to 2040 timeframe. The largest driver of that is Regulation 31, which is the nutrient regulations that we are working with the state to delay the implementation of by participating in their voluntary incentive program, which should give us time to one, develop a solution that is the most cost effective for the plant, as well as two, plan for it from a revenue perspective. This is what the operating fund looks like right now. We continue to refine this to try and help work with this debt burden. You can see we start issuance of debt in 2022, and we're working right now through WIFIA to figure out the best way to craft that debt so that we can fund those projects. The last piece I wanted to talk about tonight was additional staffing. This is the slide from April 13th. So this was when the results of the master plan were brought together. And so the master plan did a really, really high level general look at needs and programs and projects and also staffing. That's the optimal if we could just do and fund everything scenario in the master plan. Well, then reality kicks in terms of what can we really afford, what can we implement. It's hard to implement everything right out of the gate if we don't even have staffing on board. So we had this 2-year process to build up the staffing. And a few of the things that those staffing needs address is, if you recall last year when I was talking about our staffing, specifically at the water plant, we had a significant amount of time last year where there was only one operator in the plant for a significant number of hours in a particular day. We still have that issue, but we are one operator hire away from that issue going away, which it's taken a year to essentially build that team to the point where we can actually do that, which gives me a lot of peace of mind as the director of the utility. Additionally, I think our operations staff feel better about having some redundancy, so that if someone goes on vacation, it's not a mad scramble to figure out who's going to work overtime to ensure that we have operators at the plant. So we've been building towards that. The other key area that we've been building up is the engineering division, and that's to help in a number of different areas. One, you saw the project tonight, that requires engineering support to understand and design and execute and manage construction. Well, that's just one project of $70 million worth of projects that we are planned to execute over the next 5 years. And it takes resources and staff to be able to execute those projects. Even though a lot of that project work is done by consultants and contractors, we need people to manage the consultants, the contractors, and do the in-house interface between the system operations and those consultants. And so this is what we talked about last year as I was first starting in the role of director. This was our best estimate at the time, and we hired a number of those positions, only made a couple minor modifications to that. And so this is what our proposal was for 2022, which actually, if you go back to this, we had originally anticipated 8 in 2020 and 3 in 2021, but we realized that was just too aggressive of an implementation. So we moved that out a year. So we did 8 in 2021, and now we're programming these last 3 in 2022. And so what we are looking at is another supervisor at the Allen treatment plant, an INC manager, which is that integration and control. So that's all that SCADA and HMI and data interface, someone to manage that from an operational perspective. And then one more engineer in our engineering division to help execute the significant capital expenditures that we have planned for over the next 5 years. And then once we get out of the 5-year window, it's not like they go away. We have a significant number of projects over the next 10 to 15 years to address many, many years of issues that have been building. So that is the summary of those items as they relate to our budget development. And I'd look for any feedback from the board in terms of our plan and steps moving forward.
Do we have anything, anyone want to say anything about this? Well, hearing none, there is no need to agree with this, or
there's no action. No, this was more informational.
Required.
That's correct. So we'll take this. We'll continue to develop as we're working with council and bring the development of our budget to water and sewer board meetings throughout the summer, so that you can see as we develop to whatever the final budget that will be presented in generally September, October timeframe.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Now moving on to old business. Is there any old business that we need to discuss?
We have none.
We have none. We'll go on to staff's choice.
Okay, we do have a few items on staff choice. So first and foremost, we wanted to, as staff, and I'm sure the board as well, just wanted to thank Chair Wiggins for his many, many years of service to the Water and Sewer Board. And we have put together a card and a plant that we will be sending over to him to thank him for those years of service. And just wanted to acknowledge that and give an opportunity for any of the board members to speak on that that issue.
Do you have anyone who wants to say any words about Chair Wiggins?
Just want to add our thank you for many, many years.
Yes, many years.
Yeah, wasn't just
I
on.
have served the city as mayor, as city council person. He's been the water board and a couple of other boards I know he's served on. So he's been a busy person and done a lot for the city. And
Yeah, I met him 30 years ago when I applied for my first board and commission. So he was mayor at the time.
yeah. Well,
So just want to share my appreciation for his service. It has, I remember back to him being on council when I first moved here. So,
yeah.
This is Linda. Yes, I'm very thankful for his 30-some years of service. I don't know what he did before he was on council. He may have been on boards and commissions then too. It'd be fun to sort of see what else he might have been on, but I know he served in the early 90s as mayor, so probably on council before then. But I was on one hand surprised when I got the email, a little bit concerned for him, but at the same time thought, oh my gosh, this man has given so much time to the city, and so thankful for the residents that we have that do that. As many of you, as all of you. So those of you that serve on this board, very appreciative of the time that you spend doing this. So big thanks to him. Thanks, Peter, for sending some thought. You're going to send him a card and flowers, did you say? Or
Yeah, actually a plant. So
oh,
I
great.
know Brenda is working on that. And,
Wonderful.
Yeah,
Thank you for doing that.
Yeah, we wanted to get him some kind of an appreciation.
Good. Moving on, transitioning into an in-person board meeting in July.
Okay, so I want to add a minor adjustment to that title, and so this is more of a discussion about what the board would like to do, and maybe Mayor, if you have any input in terms of what the council plans are, if you know anything as it relates to boards and commissions for a transition to in person, we just wanted to start the discussion.
Yeah, we have not made any decision as a council as to whether the boards and commissions need to come back face to face. My view on it is every board and commission should decide itself what they want to do. That's my view on it. We haven't mandated anything. We're back. We started last night, first time back face to face as council. And I have to admit, if you go back and look at it, we've got these, like we were planning this 3 or 4 months ago and bought all the things for it. So there's plexiglass everywhere. We're sitting in the community room rather than the chambers. And we're not wearing masks because we really don't need to under the circumstances. Not everybody has revealed whether they have been vaccinated or not. I have been, and I encourage people to do that. I think it's the only way out of this well. But for those who don't, the rest of us will. So I think this council just needs to decide. We have different medical health cautions and concerns and work-life matters that I think in my view, and I just think everybody can decide what they want as a commission. And I think that's what some of the other commissions are doing. So if you prefer to be like that over the summer and for a longer term than that, I'm sure we can process that. If you would prefer to be together, they can figure it out.
Yeah, to add to that, we can accommodate either. I mean, obviously we've been doing this for a year, so it is really up to what the board would like to do. And I just wanted to make sure that we initiated the discussion so that the board could talk about it.
And I have to say that I am so impressed with this group because I know when I first came on the Water and Sewer Board, people didn't even want electronic forms of information. And you have gone over the moon on this one because not only have you probably received them that way, you have also been on Zoom, which most people detest now. I actually like it, but I really like being in face-to-face too.
Okay, do we have any suggestions from the board on this matter?
Is John, I'll volunteer that I would appreciate the option to remain on Zoom for the time being, even if some members of the board would like to meet in person. So I don't know if a hybrid approach is an option. But I would like it to be not just the commission's decision, but the individual members' decisions about how they best can handle it.
Okay.
I should have added that last night we were hybrid. We had one council member online or on Zoom and the rest of us there, and 2 members were missing, which came out of the blue at the last minute. Not sure what happened, but they were the ones who wanted to be back face to face. Were adamant about it, but they weren't there last
It didn't
night.
show.
I think they were on vacation or something and they forgot to tell us. I don't know. But anyway, we found out later yesterday afternoon that they weren't coming. So anyway, we had a good dry run at it. It works if you want to do it like that. We can do anything.
Yeah, so I guess the question is there anyone that's ready to would prefer to move to in-person already? So we have at least one that would rather keep the option of being on electronic. If everyone's on that same boat, then it's easy, or we can pursue the hybrid option.
Well, just to add, it might make sense, since we are welcoming new board members next month, to not do a hybrid the first meeting that they're on the Water and Sewer Board. So if anything, maybe it makes sense to carry this through the summer, and then talk about it again in the fall and see where everybody's at then.
I agree.
Yeah, that sounds good.
I'm with John on this. It just, if we have to glass and hybrid and everything else, everything is moving smoothly the way it is. Let's just leave it as it is until the fall and reevaluate.
Okay. Well, we can
Sounds
definitely
good.
do that, and we can definitely accommodate that. And I appreciate the discussion on this, and we will respond accordingly.
We will be Zooming. The next item on the agenda is new board appointments and election of new Water and Sewer Board Chair.
So this is a discussion of, in anticipation of July, what we will be doing, because we will be having new board members, and given the sudden departure of Chair Wiggins, we just wanted to make sure that we'll talk about what the plan is moving forward for the July meeting to welcome new board members and elect the new chair. And Mayor Olson, if you have the any input from she might be, Mayor Olson, if you have any feedback from the boards and commissions from last night, the appointments.
Yes, last night. So congratulations to Drevis, because we moved her up from an alternate to regular. And then we had appointed someone as the alternate then, and that person will also move up to regular, and we will have an open position for alternate and try to fill that in the next round. Is that what you were?
Yep, that's exactly it. So
Right.
So brand new last night. We've got at least a couple new people. Congratulations, Drevis, and we look forward to having you on as a full-time member of the Water and Sewer Board.
There we go.
I spoke highly of you because you're always here. You can count on you being here.
Well,
If board chairman, I have one other thing that I would like to just to acknowledge, and what we'll probably end up doing is we'll just send this information along. but at the last meeting, Board Member Moore asked a question about the comparisons between the WIFIA funds and bonds and SRF and those kinds of things. And so we did do that comparison. I have a short slideshow that I could show either now, or we can send the information if I'd leave it up to the board since it was not on the actual on the agenda. It's really up. If you'd like to see it right now, it's a couple slides that does kind of go through the comparison, or we can just send the information out, and then if you have questions.
Any input to this from anyone? I'm willing to watch what you have now.
Sure, yeah. Since
Okay, I will go quick because we would still like to, we like that 6 o'clock target in terms of finishing this meeting.
Well, we still need to deal with the chair.
Right, you still have the chair appointment yet.
Still have the chair
shoot.
spot.
Shoot. Oh, well, okay. So I'm not sure exactly what we do in this situation. Brenda, do you have a? I'm
Yeah,
sorry, I skipped ahead.
If I could just recommend to the board that we wait until next month until we have a full panel of board members to decide on the chair.
Agree.
Yeah.
Oh, right, because we're missing one longer term person, right?
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, that makes sense. Otherwise I would say do it tonight so you're ready and can go, but whatever.
But you
Yeah,
don't
that
have
makes
to put up
sense.
with me.
No. Maybe what would be helpful though is for people who are interested in it to submit their names so that we all know who's willing to do it and who's interested in it.
John?
I think the way it usually works is you say, Chuck, you did a great job tonight, so you have my recommendation. Then you pass the buck around a little bit.
I think everybody puts their finger on their nose.
Yeah.
Well, if you do have a burning desire to chair the Water and Sewer Board, please reach out to Brenda and let her know, and we'll bring this to the full board in July and make a new appointment.
That sounds good.
Okay.
Okay, apologize for forgetting that. Let me share my screen just for a few minutes here, and then I promise we'll get you out of here just a couple minutes after 6. So, can you see my screen?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, so this came as a really wide Excel spreadsheet, so we've split it into a few different slides. But essentially, what we did is, you can see these are the borrowing programs and fees that we looked at. So WIFIA, SRF is state revolving funds, so those come from the state. Then there's bonds, and then there's cash. And so if we look at the loan amount being generally at 43,270, that was the current number at the time we were looking at this. We're actually looking to push that to a little bit higher based on the project. So that's in development right now. You can see the loan processing fees. For WIFIA, there's an upfront loan processing fee that's anywhere from 1 to 300,000. SRF at 0. Bonds, it's 1%. Recurring annual loan fee, this is where WIFIA has a pretty favorable annual loan maintenance fee. It's 20,000 during the program and 8,000 during the life of the loan.
Huh.
And then for SRF, it's actually up to 1.25% of the loan principal annually, which can really add up. And so the interest rate calc method, which is this is a senior loan rate for maturity. This is outside my expertise as a financial person. And then SRF is 70% of market. So this is my understanding that this is generally market rate, and this is 70% of market. And you can see what that would do in terms of the current rate as of May 2021, which current market rate's about 2.3. SRF would then be at 2.0, and bonds are at 3.5, and cash obviously doesn't apply.
And Peter, I'm sorry, which one's lock in? And maybe you'll get to that.
Yeah,
Which
that's
one's
next.
locked in? Okay, sorry.
Right here. And so interest rate lock, you lock at the time of loan closing for the duration of loan for WIFIA. Same thing for SRF. And then bonds can be locked at the time of issuance. It depends on the issuance. The interest accrual accrues only on the funds drawn and at the time that you draw the funds, similar with SRF. And then with bonds, your interest accrues on the total amount issued when you're issuing the bonds. The repayment terms from WIFIA are 35 years from substantial completion. So this allows more flexibility in terms of time to execute the projects and then not have to start paying back until later and then a longer period of time to pay that back. SRF is 30 years from the issuance of the loan. And then same thing with bonds. So with SRF and bonds, you can be paying back parts of the loan during the period, during the 5-year period that we're trying to execute the projects under that entire $45 million program. Whereas with WIFIA, we have the time to execute. And then once we get to the point of substantial completion, that's when we would move into the payback term. The relevant terms and conditions. So the main thing here is Davis-Bacon wages and American Iron and Steel are requirements of both WIFIA and SRF. And in bonds, you don't have to comply with those requirements. What I gathered from our financial consultant is that generally adds about 6%, 5 to 6% in terms of cost on a project if you are complying with Davis-Bacon and American Iron and Steel. So it is a project cost, but it's not substantial. You can see right there, it's 5%. The borrowing program, so estimated cost to comply with the relative in terms is 2.1 million, so that's 5% of that 43. And this doesn't apply for cash and bonds. And then total interest paid if principal is fully drawn. And WIFIA, it's 20 million. On SRF, it's 14.6. On bonds, it's 27. And that's based on those interest rates and that payback time frame. So with WIFIA, it's a 2.3% 35-year. SRF is 2% for 30-year, and bonds is 3.5% for 30-year. So then when you add all this up, WIFIA ends up generally in this analysis being 22.9. SRF is 29.8, and the main reason in this assumption we actually assumed instead of 1.25% of the principal, we assumed 1% of the principal, so we didn't even go to what the maximum was in terms of that annual fee. And so that's where the real difference comes in here, is that annual fee amount, which is more of a fixed way of securing the return. And then the bonds is it comes in at 27.7. The one thing that's not accounted for, and you can see this up above, is it doesn't account for the benefits of sculpting the debt payback. With WIFIA, there's a tremendous amount of flexibility in terms of how we sculpt that debt payback, whereas with the other ones, there's less flexibility there. And so the numbers are all, and again, this is a real high level analysis. We tried to make it apples to apples as much as we could. You can see that generally over the life of the loan, WIFIA is more advantageous based on what our analysis tells us, but then also has that added benefit of delaying until substantial completion to actually start that payback period, and then to sculpt that payback period in a way. And that's where we're actually working with the city's financial advisor to help us sculpt that debt and the debt payback in a way that makes the most sense for the water and the sewer fund. And so just wanted to get back to you, since this was a question from last month, and give you a better sense of the comparison.
Thank you, Peter.
Just a quick question for Peter. The value of not like bonds, you're taking all the money out at once, and you mentioned on the other options you can take it out as needed. What would be the likely kind of draw, a borrowing period, not the payback period, the borrowing period, so to speak, when you have that full flexibility of taking it out as needed?
The way we've got it modeled is we'll spend the full 5 years drawing it down each year. And the reason why is because WIFIA can only fund 49% of the project costs. So we still need that 51% cash match or other funding source. So other funding sources could be if if the infrastructure bill goes through and there's federal funds that become available, that can be used as a other funding source, or SRF as another debt issuance can make up that other 51%. So because we have to year over year have that matching amount, we would draw it over that 5-year period.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Okay. Are there any other announcements or questions from the board?
Peter, can you send us those slides anyway, just so we can see? I know that you've been really good about comparing year over year, like you showed us how things looked last year, how it's playing out so far this year. Can we get copies of those?
Yeah, on this recent slide, these most recent slides. Yeah, not only that, I'll actually send you the Excel spreadsheet as well that made up these slides, so that you can see the formulas that were assumed in this. And again, it's a high level comparison to try and help us draw some apples to apples comparisons. But we'll send the slideshow and the Excel file that so then you can see the calcs.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Well, we're reaching the end of the day. Are there any other comments that need to be made by anyone? And otherwise,
Yes, I would like to say something. Sorry, it took me a while to turn. My internet has been going on and off. That's why I turned off the video. I don't know if you are all familiar with the All America City Award, but we are one of 20 cities that has been named a finalist for the All America City Award by the National League of Cities. We've been competing this week, and we will have our presentation tomorrow morning at 10:45 in front of the All America City Board. It's a live presentation. We have a skit that we're doing. We've been practicing for a week and a half. We're about 20, some of us are, Mayor Pro Tem and I are both on it, and the city manager and a number of other people, and including both staff and citizens, business owners. We're pretending we are a classroom, and we're telling the story of Englewood over the last year and things that have been, positive. So wish us luck tomorrow. The city of Englewood will, whether we receive a final 10, the 10 awardees or not, it's really a phenomenal thing to have reached the top 20. We are going to have a little party at the Grand tomorrow at 5:30. If you want to join us to sit and watch the award ceremony. So we'll find out there whether or not we were one of the final awardees. So a lot of good things in our application. It was around 3 different things. One was our police reform work that we did. A second was the stormwater work that you've been seeing along the way. And a third is our resilience during the COVID pandemic. So big kudos to our staff who put this together and have been the ones who really, if we receive this award, and either way, it's all about what they've been doing on the ground day after day after day after day. So anyway, I'm very proud of the city to be able to reach this level. It's very exciting. So tune in tomorrow if you'd like. There are all kinds of links on Instagram, Facebook, everything. I don't know, Peter, if you want to have someone send out the link to, but
I can Brenda, if we can get a copy of that link, we can get it sent out to the board members, and you can watch it live.
Yeah. Or you can also watch a recording later. So it's good. It's informative. It's a little cheesy. It's kind of funny. And we did a dry run last week with the National League of Cities, and they said in the 3 or 4 years the person had been in this position, she'd never seen anything quite like this, and she found it to be incredibly creative. So I'm hoping that's a good sign that she just wasn't being kind, but yeah.
I'd really like to see that.
Well, good luck tomorrow too.
Yes.
Very good.
Thanks. That's all I have.
Are there any other inputs from anyone?
Just sorry that I was so late in getting here. I thought I could get hooked up in a half hour. Next time I'll start at 4 o'clock.
Well, I had problems getting on too, so I That's okay. Well, if that does it,
We could just make a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion that we adjourn this what is it, June 8th meeting of the Englewood Water and Sewer Board. Are there any objections? Nay?
You have complete control to
Aye,
adjourn the
aye.
meeting, so declare it.
We are over.
There we go.
Thank you,
Have a great
everyone.
week,
Thank you,
everybody.
for putting up with me.
You did great, Chuck.
Did
You did
great.
great.
Thanks for pitch hitting here for last minute. Take care, everybody. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.